Well, hello, everyone. I'm Lori Marino, and I want to thank you for joining us this afternoon for our live webinar. This webinar is hosted by the Whale Sanctuary Project, as well as the Camella Center for Scholarship-Based Animal Advocacy. The role of marine parks and zoos and aquaria really in displaying dolphins and whales, as you know, has come under a lot of scrutiny lately. And many of us are wondering, when you go to a place and you see a whale in a tank, what is it you're actually seeing? When we watch a whale perform tricks, who is that? And what is that? You know, very often a picture is worth 1,000 words. And photographs can tell stories about animals that challenge our preconceptions about who they are and the circumstances that they're in. And they speak to the heart. And so today I am really honored to have someone who speaks to the heart through her beautiful photographs and journalism, Jo-Anne McArthur. Jo-Anne is an award-winning animal photojournalist. She's a sought-after speaker, so I'm honored to have her. She's a photo editor, and she is the founder of We Animals Media that you will hear more about. For almost 2 decades now, she's traveled to over 60 countries to document the plight of animals. Since We Animals release, her nonprofit, she's published the book Captive in 2017 and Hidden: Animals in the Anthropocene in 2020 with co-author Keith Wilson. And that book was awarded the Photography Book of the Year by Picture of the Year International. Jo-Anne was the subject of filmmaker Liz Marshall's acclaimed documentary, The Ghost in Our Machine, and I was personally honored to be part of that documentary. Her work is published regularly in the media and has supported hundreds of animal advocacy campaigns. Recent accolades for her work include awards from as Wildlife Photographer of the Year, Nature Photographer of the Year, Big Picture, the Spanish Association of Nature Photographers, and the Global Peace Award. In 2020, Jo-Anne served as a jury member for World Press Photo, and she hails from Toronto, Canada, and will tell you much more about her nonprofit, We Animals Media, but you can visit her photo agency and explore the thousands of brilliant photographs there and images there at www.weanimalsmedia.org. So without further ado, let me welcome Jo-Anne McArthur.
Hey, Lori, thank you so much for inviting me.
It's my pleasure. It's our honor to have you.
And thanks to everyone who's joining us today and who will join us later on. We really appreciate your interest in the conversation. Well, we are starting with Kiska, an orca who still lives at Marineland. And we'll get into her story a little bit, Lori and I. But I'm starting with this image because it's the kind of image many tourists would take when they go to an aquarium. This is kind of the most typical thing you would see. You are at the underwater viewing zone. You see animals swimming by. And while a lot of my work is investigative in nature, and I have to enter places illicitly to do the work that I do, I don't have to do this where animals are used for entertainment, like zoos and aquaria and rodeos. I just have to buy a ticket and go in. I don't like giving them my money, but the money that I spend there, you end up with images that are influential in the world and change people's hearts and minds. But I don't want images like this. There I am standing in a group of people and everyone's taking pictures. it doesn't really say much. It says what you would normally see and doesn't inspire much thinking. So when I go to these places of captivity, I stay for days if I can. And I watch our interactions with the animals and how they are in plain view, but still hidden, still unconsidered. That's what I mean by hidden. We often go to places of entertainment because we want to be entertained. We're thinking about our kids in the stroller. We are, just spending a day out for fun, but the individuals, like Kiska, well, this is at their expense. I like this image because it shows the pointing. You see that a lot in my images when it comes to our interactions with animals. The pointing, it's such an obvious gesture of objectification. And she's looking out at all of us, but we're not really seeing her. You can see the tank as well. And there's this one pathetic rock on the ground. And what is that meant to be? I'm not sure. A little bit of stimulus for her, enrichment, they might call it. The wall in front of her also has some rocks on it. So not just the blue concrete tank, but it's, well,
it's if I may,
please.
as many of you know, Kiska is a female orca who was captured when she was a young whale. And she has been in this tank in Marineland, Canada for decades. Just a tiny bit about her backstory is that she had 5 children, 5 calves, and all 5 of them perished in this facility. She also had some company, but she has been alone in that tank for the past 11 years. And it is, I find the pointing particularly interesting because it is a referencing that is really objectifies her. You point at things, but you tend not to point at people, other people, right? Because you think that's rude, but you point at other animals.
That's such a great observation. I hadn't actually thought of that in context of pointing at other animals. Thank you. I love talking about my photos of people because they always say things and see things that I don't. Yeah, Kiska was wild caught off the coast of Iceland in 1979. Such a long time ago. And this place where she lives is ironically called Friendship Cove. I mean, come on. And actually, the thing about photographing animals in captivity, getting the same kind of images that other people get, is that you really have to illuminate those images with information. And we do have a lot of information on Kiska. And when you paint this picture, that she was wild caught and the others that she was caught with died, that she's had 5 babies, that she's in Friendship Cove. Now, question for you, how was she inseminated? Do you know, Lori?
I don't know. I think it was probably natural, but because she did have a male with her. But I'm not absolutely sure of that. Because in many facilities, the reason you ask, I think, is because in many facilities, including places like SeaWorld, these animals are artificially inseminated. So they're made to have calves over and over and over again.
Yeah, and so they don't even have that autonomy. They don't get to choose if and when they, want to procreate.
That's right.
Why did her calves die? And is that common?
It's not uncommon. It's uncommon perhaps for 5 to be born and all 5 to pass. But there are some of them just were not healthy. Some of them lived for a while and then passed. The whole issue of orca calves and beluga calves and other cetacean calves in captivity, living in concrete tanks is a really problematic one, because as you can imagine, the whole environment is artificial. It sometimes impacts mother-calf attachment. And in the beginning, if the calf is not being fed and has to be bottle fed, that just sets that individual on a really bad path that doesn't usually end well. So it's the whole process of enabling or sometimes forcing pregnancies, and then asking someone like Kiska to raise her children in this kind of situation. It just doesn't work.
She's really in the news these last few years, thanks to the efforts of academics and activists and NGOs. And you would like to get her to your sanctuary.
We would love to have Kiska in our sanctuary in Nova Scotia, right next door. And of course, the only way that's going to happen is if the folks at Marineland Canada will work with us to make that happen. And the first thing, that would have to happen is we'd have to evaluate her to make sure she's healthy enough to go to a sanctuary. But if she were, we would love to have her.
Here's another photograph of her in Friendship Cove. And it takes her less than a minute, maybe even 30 seconds to circumnavigate this tank. That's all she has. And Lori, is it so that they swim like hundreds or thousands of kilometers every year in the wild?
Yeah, they could. And I think I saw one graphic or infographic that said that, in a typical environment like this, they'd have to swim about 1,400 times around the tank to equal, the amount of travel that they would do. But, as you can see, to call this travel is not really accurate because they're not going anywhere. So they circle and circle and circle, and they might tread water for a certain amount of time, but there's nothing changing in the environment. So it's not really travel. It's just basically swimming or movement, but without any input to their senses.
And this is, to me anyway, it seems like this would be akin to torture, isolation, solitary confinement. These are such social animals, and don't they live in matrilineal lines? Is that right?
Absolutely, absolutely. To keep an animal like this in a tank all by him or herself is probably the worst thing you can do.
It is so hard. This is my life and my work to document these kind of things, but it's so, my heart hurts every time. And it should. And it's that pain, in fact, that keeps me going as a photographer.
That's right.
Hard.
We're grateful that you are able to do the things you do, because I don't know if I could.
Well, you are. I think we're attacking this from different angles, aren't we? But we're both fully into it. We're still at Marineland here in this picture, and they have a number of belugas. And again, this is an image of us having animals right in front of us without really regarding them, their happiness, their lives, anything that they would need. This is fully about our enjoyment of them, and also the parents' enjoyment of, your kids. You feel like a good parent when you've brought your kids out to interact with wild animals. But there are so many layers to that, and we think so uncritically when it comes to visiting these places. And Lori, you were telling me about the number of belugas in these tiny, tiny, tiny tanks at Marineland.
Yeah, the last count we have is that they might have as many as 40 or so, which is a lot. And because of the new legislation in Canada, the Bill S-203, they no longer can allow breeding. But 40 animals is quite a lot. They used to have a lot more. But it's quite a lot for them to have in a couple of small tanks. And I think the thing that really gets me about this particular photograph is the little kids. These are little kids, and they're having a great time, and they don't know any better. They don't know that they're learning something that might not be a good thing to learn.
Yes.
They're just little kids, and yet they're being told something implicitly that
Yeah.
it's going to end up not being a good thing when they grow up.
Yeah, they're learning that they have the right to see animals that have been been caught by us and put on display. They're being taught this is an absolutely normal expectation that we have the right to.
Yeah.
I've heard so many parents say, well, how are my children expected to get an education about animals if they can't go to a zoo or an aquarium? But that's not very critical thinking. And actually, we'll get to some slides about the Detroit Zoo and what they're doing and how they're showing animals. Don't worry, spoiler alert, it's good.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. But yeah, I mean, there's really no evidence that kids learn anything substantive when they go to see an animal on display. That's sort of a claim that is not backed up by a whole lot of evidence.
I wonder how many kids felt like me when I was going to zoos when I was a kid. I felt bad. I felt sad. I thought, oh, how can this be okay? I feel uncomfortable, but you're meant to be there to have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
It's by rides and candy floss and family time, so it's really conflicting. And then I think a lot of kids just assume, well, it's meant to be okay. I'm taught that this is okay, so I'm just going to forget about it.
Exactly. I mean, they're told it's okay, and mom and dad think it's okay, so it must be okay,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of people do think it's okay, and because they're told that by the facilities.
Now over to how I photograph animals in captivity. It's when you see wildlife photography, it's often a beautiful portrait of an animal. And that doesn't serve the animal, it serves us. And photographers love doing it. And it's, I don't know, it's another way, in fact, that photography can objectify animals. And things have changed, though, in wildlife photography. Wildlife photographers really want us to feel awe. They want us to feel reverence now. It wasn't always like that. It was much more exploitative, but it's changed in that way. And it's also moved much more towards conservation photography. And that is meant implicitly to help the animals in the picture, which is great. What we're seeing now is an additional move towards animal photojournalism, which is something that my organization and I coined. And it includes all animals, not just wild animals. And it looks very much at how we treat them, the situations they are in because of us. And so it's important to not show the animal, but to not just the animal, but the context in which we keep them. And so that's why we have this image here. We're showing the space. This animal is about to perform, but look, we see two people in the audience. And then we see the animal's home just along the horizon. That's the ocean there. And yet they're confined to this space. And then we had about 5 minutes later, I took this photo. And it's quite similar, isn't it, to those 3 kids with the beluga. We teach young people that this is okay, and not only okay, but just, to be celebrated. They also, at this facility and others where I was in Hawaii, they have swim with dolphin not events, but you pay a lot of money. I think some of these places even charge $500 US to have 15 to 20 minutes swimming with dolphins. So this is one of those facilities. We'll start with this image, but this is where they live. This is their pool. Here's another image of that facility. And it just kills me that they're so close to their natural home. And I think about, why we do this. And something that I often come back to when I think about these swim with dolphin in captive dolphins is like the lack of authenticity of the experience. Why are we okay with that? I mean, the animal captivity is, of course, a huge problem here. But so many questions arise for me from that. And why are we okay with spending a lot of money to just get in the water with, a captive animal? I don't know, Lori, do you have
Yeah, I mean, why do you think? I mean, I'm looking at this photo, and this photo is all about pretending that this is nature, right? We see these trees, the palm trees, and the foliage and the water, and then there's the ocean there as the backdrop, and all of it says, hey, you're in nature, even though it has nothing to do with nature. And so it's a show. It's a patina of something natural that people think is, I mean, I think people are told that the dolphins want to do this, that they enjoy it. And so, why not, right? I mean,
Yeah,
what do
and
you think?
if they see the animals jumping, flipping, performing, that's an indication of play, which is an indication of happiness. But is that completely not so when it comes to the captive animals and what they're doing?
It's not. And just recently, there were a couple of incidents of captive dolphins very severely injuring some people in swim with the dolphin programs. This happens all the time. There's a whole litany of events that have happened where people have been sent to the hospital, been bitten, rammed. And the reason is because they are put in a situation where they are in the water with a wild animal. People are led to believe that dolphins in captivity are somehow domesticated, and they're not. They're wild animals, and they don't want to be there. So, and I think also there's the whole mythology around dolphins. They want to heal you, they love you, all of this stuff, which is all just basic mythology. It's not real.
That leads to the image after this one, but here again,
This is unbelievable.
The pointing, I guess it speaks for itself.
Yeah. Can you tell us more about the context of this, where, what this is? What are these people doing?
So this is in this pool with these dolphins, and the trainers have taught them to do certain tricks when people make certain hand gestures. So you start by pointing at the animal. And we're so fooled by the shape of their mouths, aren't we? It's like that with a lot of animals. We misunderstand the structure of their physiology, and the smiles on dolphins and, other animals too, with chimpanzees, when they bare their teeth in a certain form, we think that they're smiling, but they're not. It's an expression of fear. So we have a lot to learn.
Yeah, an open mouth gesture by a dolphin is a gesture of aggression.
Oh.
And, so if you see a dolphin, and a dolphin is, open mouth and moving his or her head around, they're not laughing. This isn't flipper. They're not joyful. That's aggression. That says, give me my space. Otherwise, something bad is going to happen. So that's a threat. And you see that with belugas as well, behind the glass, and everyone laughs and thinks, oh, look how cute, the beluga's laughing. It's not. The beluga's being stressed and is telling you back off.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just following on something you mentioned a moment ago. So this is a photo taken at an aquarium in Lithuania, where the animals are there to perform and also to be part of dolphin-assisted therapy. There are about 10 dolphins here, I believe. There might be more, but what I could see was about that number. And then they get sort of sectioned off into different parts of the aquarium. And so here you see a table through that window and some chairs. That's where people would sit and observe, I guess. Laura, you've written a lot of scientific papers and done studies about this kind of dolphin therapy. I would love to hear your 2 cents on that. I know you said you could talk all day about it.
I won't. And I definitely don't want to take up a lot of time. I'll just very, very briefly say that, what you see here as an example is, a dolphin used in dolphin assisted therapy. And the idea here is that you pay a lot of money, sometimes thousands of dollars, for several sessions with a dolphin. And there is something about swimming with or touching the dolphin or interacting with the dolphin that is supposed to be therapeutic. And a population that's very heavily preyed upon by DAT is the autism community. They lead desperate parents to think, oh, if you bring your child with autism to these sessions, that they will get better. It's treatment. And I can tell you from literally decades of investigation of the methodology of these studies, and there's absolutely nothing to it. It is just snake oil. There's absolutely nothing about dolphin assisted therapy that's real therapy. And it's risky because you're putting children often in the water with dolphins who live like this. You're depicting, and that dolphin can't possibly be a happy dolphin. And you're going to have that dolphin swim with a little child in the water.
This is another view of those dolphins. The place is empty. There's no more audience. And these are conditions. And this, I sort of stayed after the show and wanted to film as much as I could. And this dolphin just floated there looking at me. And of course, I never want to assume what they're thinking, but, I wasn't thinking, oh, this animal wants to interact with me and this is a bonding experience the way they might think of it with these assisted therapies.
Yeah.
But I thought, I'm being accused here. I felt so under the spotlight. I am one of the captive humans doing something, not helping. I didn't assume that this dolphin could differentiate me from the others. And I find that so painful. It's one of the hard parts of my job.
Did you feel ashamed?
Yeah, that is definitely a part of my job because I face animals and I try and document their lives and how they might be experiencing things. And so in order to do that, I get close and I stay and then I leave, and I haven't helped those animals, but I'm trying to reduce the amount of suffering in the world by having people connect with my images and learn about the incredible nature of these animals and why we shouldn't be keeping any of them captive, whether they're dolphins or orcas or hens or pigs or turkeys or fish.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just hope that this, if you can put energy out into the world and anyone can sense it, I hope that they can sense a little bit about why I'm there and why I'm facing them. Certainly these animals react to me. Animals in general react to me differently than other humans when I'm in factory farms. And that's because the people going into factory farms are, going in there to feed them, move them, take their children, cut their tails, clip their beaks or their teeth, clip their ears, vaccinate them, all of these things. So animals are generally in places where they're kept in a really massive way, afraid of us. They act differently to me because I'm very quiet and I stay close to them. And eventually many of them will come and sniff me or, want to interact, which is heartbreaking.
Oh, so sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To our next. Yeah. Go ahead.
You go. Nope. You go ahead.
This is at an aquarium in France. And I include this very generic image because it's part of a photo essay. I never want to just show one image. I want maximum context and storytelling and information. And so here is where the dolphins in the following image live. It's just so tiny. When we're sitting there close in the front row, it might look like a large space, but we're so easily fooled. And again, there's no enrichment in these places, and there's no choice for them. When to eat, what to eat, when to breed, all of these things that any sentient individual wants to do. So here we are, sort of blindly going to be entertained. And here are three of the individuals who live there who are meant to perform. And the dolphin on the left is obese and suffers from obesity because of the antidepressants that he or she is given. And so obesity can be a side effect of taking antidepressants. But Lori, you know about this.
Yeah, antidepressants, SSRIs like Prozac and so forth, cause a weight gain in some mammals, including people. And the real question here, well, the obvious is that this animal, this individual is so obese that he or she is really unhealthy. But also, why is that individual on antidepressants? And when you look into the issue, you find that antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, those types of things are given pretty regularly to dolphins and whales held in captivity to keep them compliant, to keep them docile, to keep them from acting out. They're drugged. And that's just an industry practice. That's one of the dirty little secrets that they don't tell you about, when you go to a show or get in the water with a dolphin who is on Prozac or anti-anxiety medication. But that's what happens. So that's what you have to ask yourself. Why are they drugged up on a regular basis? And that's the problem.
At this aquarium, like many of the aquariums I've visited, the animals perform with the keepers, or not sure what to call them, the animal keepers, the performing humans, and these tricks where the human is standing on the tips of their noses.
Mm-hmm.
The disguise is that there's music and cheering and it's all meant to be fun, fun, fun. I have no clue, because I don't know a lot about dolphins, what that must be like. Do you have any knowledge of this? What have studies shown about, animals performing where they're meant to like lift humans out of the water and all these things that they're taught to do?
Oh, I mean, it obviously, there used to be orcas doing that, and that ended for obvious reasons. Dolphins, people riding on the dolphins, even beluga whales. I've seen photographs of people standing on the head, the melon of a beluga whale. In fact, we have a photograph like that in our visitor center in Sherbrooke, of a trainer being lifted out of the water by a beluga whale. And anyone who knows the anatomy knows that whole part of the head is incredibly soft and sensitive. That's the melon. So I can't even imagine what it would be like to have to lift an adult human being on a soft part of my head and do that regularly. It's just incredibly dangerous for the animal, for the person. And it's really, it's not something that they have to be really coerced to do something like that. They don't want to do anything like that. Nobody wants somebody standing on their face. And that's the long and short of it. And they're very sensitive there. That whole area around their blowhole and their melon, that's where they breathe. Imagine Imagine somebody literally standing close to your nose and your mouth where you breathe.
Yeah, that's what I want people to do. Exactly that.
Yeah, exactly.
Imagine is to connect with the individuals in the image and put yourselves in their place.
That's right.
We need more empathy when it comes to other animals, and then the compassion to change our habits, to not go to these places and to, visit sanctuaries instead and interact with animals in other ways.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of interacting with animals in other ways,
okay, some good stuff too.
Yeah, there's so much that we can do. There's so much that the industries using animals can do, and so much that we can do. We cannot go to these places. We can go to places where we are entertaining ourselves, and not where captive animals are forced to do it. So here we are at the Detroit Zoo, which is quite an interesting and special place, run by Ron Kagan, who is trying to revolutionize what zoos are. Mm-hmm. Now, this is their Shackleton expedition boat. They have part of the boat recreated, and you can walk through it, and you can look through portholes underwater, and you can see animals swimming by and looking through the holes, and like this image here of the orca and this image here. But this is digital. There are no animals on the other side of those windows. And I would say way more fun to know that there is no captive animal behind these portholes, swimming in circles and having to entertain us. So this is, we can be so innovative, and we can do so many things to interact with and learn about animals without actually having to keep anyone captive. So kudos to everyone who's using technology and dreaming up ways for us to learn about animals in ways like this.
Absolutely. This is brilliant. And, Ron Kagan, who used to run the Detroit Zoo, he's just a brilliant leader in this field. He also had made the decision to take their elephants and bring them to sanctuary.
Yes.
So he's incredibly progressive individual and look at what you can do with a little creativity.
I will stop sharing. Yeah.
Well, Jo-Anne, I can't thank you enough for sharing your images with us. They do go straight to the heart, and some of them are difficult to look at, and that's good because we need to look. We owe that to them. I want to spend the rest of the time, if it's okay with you, taking some questions from the audience. I also want to give you some time to talk a little bit about photojournalism as a career path. Tell us a little bit more about we animals, and just provide a little guidance or advice for anyone here who may think, gee, that might be a way for me to be an animal advocate professionally. Do you want to say a little bit about that? And then I'll be looking for some great questions for you to take.
Yeah, I'm getting so distracted by all the questions coming in.
I know, there's so many.
I really want to answer them all. Thanks everyone for these questions. I hope we get to many of them. Okay, where were we? I was distracted by the questions. So I was going to talk a little bit about this as a career.
Please.
Yeah, I saw that there was no room for the kind of work that I wanted to do. In the media, no one was making room for animal photojournalism. And as I said before, the difference between animal photojournalism, APJ for short, and other kinds of animal photography is that it includes all animals. It is very political, and it's timely, and it fits in with all of the important issues of our time. Climate change, factory farming exacerbates climate change, pollution, deforestation. It ties in with human rights and labor rights. So all of this overlaps, but traditionally, we just want to look at the nicer images of selected animals, the charismatic animals, wild animals, animals that don't, images of animals that don't challenge us and challenge how we do things. And so that's what animal photojournalism is. It's why we go into factory farms. It's why we photograph animals in labs or who've been rescued from medical research labs, captive animals, animals used for religious sacrifice and work, animals that we wear, leather, fur, all of these things. And this project, We Animals Media, used to be just me with a camera for like 15 years. It was a project called We Animals. And we decided to make it into a photo agency so that there would be lots of people doing the work with us. So we give assignments, we have master classes. We work with a lot of partners globally, and we make thousands of images available to anyone helping animals. We have over 15,000 images now that you can just go to the website and use for your campaigning, and they're free. So it's really evolved quickly. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah. So I mean, it's the kind of thing that is not just about pictures, as you said. It's about it's journalism. It's true journalism.
And people who want to get involved don't have to become animal photojournalists. They can be people who support animal photojournalism by getting it out into the world, by using it, by helping it become part of the lexicon and the zeitgeist.
Mm-hmm.
We need more people in media talking about all animals and accompanying that writing and that campaigning with the strong images that we produce. And yeah, so there's a lot there. And also, when it comes to animal advocacy, it's a really exciting time because we're not doing the same thing over and over like we used to do. Now there's like a thriving field of animal law. And there are, of course, the myriad sciences you can go into that help advocate for animals. Ethology is an incredible place to be right now, studying animal behavior. And the more we learn about the behavior of animals and their sentience, the more we will care. And so, like, almost anything that you want to do in the world, you can somehow tie in making the world a kinder place, whether it's for animals or just about anyone. I find that really exciting.
Oh, it's absolutely exciting, and we look forward to you coming and photographing our sanctuary when it's up and running with whales. And you talk about different solutions to the problems that you uncover with your images. And the fact is that you showed one, which is the technology now is such that we can learn about animals in ways that don't require us to keep a live wild animal captive. Sanctuaries are another way. People can learn about the animals, see them from a distance, and they can understand for the first time why animals like dolphins and whales need to live in the ocean, period. And that's authentic education. So, these are all ways that we can change the way we're relating to these animals. I have a question here from Robert Anderson, which is very intriguing. It says, how do you handle eye contact with animals you photograph? Because it can have different meanings for different species.
Yes, some animals prefer not to have eye contact. And if they maintain eye contact, it can be a sign of aggression or telling us like to back down because I'm so I shouldn't even call it an act of aggression. It's like an act of protection. And, so that's part of the reason you need to know about animals, the animals that you're photographing, and not just go blindly trying to interact with individuals. I do my best to let animals come to me as best they can. And I have learned over the years about how some animals are very social and curious and want to gaze and share a gaze and want to smell and touch. And so I do my best to not impose myself and not impose my gaze. when I can get that gaze in a photograph, that allows everyone who's, let me rephrase that. The animals who is looking into the lens is looking out at the audience, is looking through the picture at all of you. And that's really important when I can get that, when the animal is offering that, because, it's the same with humans, that eye contact is often essential to connection. There's eye contact in some of my really difficult images of slaughter. And those are absolutely painful to take. I'm photographing someone in their most traumatizing and intimate moment, the moment of their death. And sometimes they're looking at me, and that means they're looking at all of you. These are images that are difficult to look at, but the eye contact will get people sometimes to return to the image and connect with the animal. And that's one of the main things that I'm trying to do with my work. Yeah.
Thank you. I guess on the side of thinking about interacting and contacting, do you ever have any interaction with spectators when you go to a place where they're displaying animals, or do you keep all of your focus on the animals themselves?
No, the people are very much a part of it, and I just get right in there. I talk with people. Sometimes I get to ask them questions. I'm really curious about why people go to these places, but generally I'm trying to show the constructs, and I'm trying to show our interactions and how the interactions are really superficial, and really they're very much about us. I can't tell you how many photos I've made of people taking selfies with animals. That's not about it's about, look at me. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I'm trying
please.
to answer short because I know we have about 10 minutes left. I could go on and on about these things.
But it is the selfie thing, that's a big thing. And if you go on social media, right, you see people who say, oh, I went to this sanctuary. Look at me, I'm with the dolphin, or I'm with a baby tiger, or a baby bear, or a baby fill in the blank. If you can do that, it's not a sanctuary. It's just not a sanctuary, because in no authentic sanctuary, you're going to be able to hold somebody's baby. First of all, they wouldn't be breeding. Second of all, they're not going to pass over somebody's baby to you just to hold and pass on to somebody else. I mean, that just goes against all the principles of an authentic sanctuary. So, and it's all about them. Look at me, what I did. Andrew asks, are you making any efforts to reach out to citizens of places like China with your message?
We do have someone working in China. We have over 65 contributors now globally who are sharing their work with We Animals Media, or who are doing assignments for We Animals Media. And so China is a little bit trickier because of censorship and the danger that activists put themselves in. And so it's a very different landscape, and we work according to the cultural landscape. I don't think we ever go in anywhere and take pictures and, just put them out unthoughtfully.
Yeah. Well, here's an interesting question that came in through the chat from Deb Merskin. And Deb asked a very poignant question. She asked, have you had questions from children? And if so, what's the most interesting thing a child has asked or told you?
Thanks for asking that, Deb.
Yeah.
Hi, Deb. I'm so glad.
Out of the mouths of babes, right?
Yeah. Okay, well, so I love doing humane education. I'm in schools a fair bit, speaking with young people, and they're so tuned in. They're so dialed into the things that I'm talking about and the animals and thinking critically. I just love it. And I wish I could paraphrase this kid exactly, but I was brought in to talk about zoos and aquaria. And this kid was like, oh, I want to say something. And he said, you know what I think is the worst thing about zoos is when the animals are native to the area, the whole zoo could just burn down and they would be totally fine. They must be extra humiliated that they're in there.
But you know what? That's a really astute thing to think about, because they're in there, right?
It was such an astute thing to say. I mean, he's really thinking about the different kinds of animals, who are captive and what they must think about their own captivity. And yeah, this kid was such an advocate for zoos. The kids ask great questions, and I love the school atmosphere. Yeah.
Me too. I know. I mean, I love talking to kids, and they get it. A lot of them, they have the sensitivity that most of them do come into the world with, and they get it. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that you go in schools and talk to students, because it's so rewarding.
It really is. All the talks are age appropriate. It's why my bio is a sought after speaker, because I'm in schools a fair bit. I used to do it all the time, a little bit less so now. Someone's asking about the website, and so I'll mention two things. So the website is weanimalsmedia.org in the chat already. But people ask, I do a lot of mentoring. People ask me a lot of questions about how to be in animal photojournalism, so much so that we made a masterclass with 8 episodes, self-guided, of how I do what I do, from the actual access to places, to technical questions, to coping. We have like a 45-minute episode on coping. So I encourage you to check that out. And as I said, I love speaking at school. So if you have a class you'd like to invite me to, that would be fantastic. Oh, well, one more thing. I saw someone about how they can be an animal photojournalist. I think I saw 1 or 2 questions there.
Yeah.
And, so we have a contributor form on weanimalsmedia.org, and you can just click on work with us and fill out the form about who you are, what you do, what kind of work you'd like to contribute to, what your to the stock site, and what your ideas are. So I encourage you to check that out.
That's fantastic. And anyone who wants any information above and beyond everything you get today can let me know, and I'll pass it on to Jo-Anne, or can go to We Animals Media and answer your questions. We have about 5 minutes left, and there's a question here that's a very interesting one. It's from Ian Redmond.
Oh, hey.
Yes. And this is a $6 million question for you, which is, how do you balance the need to expose cruelty with the sensitivities of your audience so that you engage them but not traumatize them?
Well, it's different every time. And that is the
Right.
$6 million question. That is the golden, I wish, unlocked all the doors.
Exactly.
But different keys for different doors. I think the primary thing is that you meet your audience where they are without judgment. Animal advocates aren't known for doing that all the time, but and I was involved in animal uses and abuses for half of my life. I know what it's like to go to a zoo. I know what it's like to eat a steak. I know what it's like to feel uncomfortable around those things and not know how to talk about it. I know what it's like to feel defensive about it. And there's so much to learn, and there are so many exciting things that we can do. So I lead with compassion for others and enthusiasm. I love answering questions. And I also, with Ian, balancing the hard images, I don't readily show them. People can seek them out and get informed through all of the videos and the photos that we put out into the world. And if I'm going to use the difficult images, it's with context and with a certain amount of hand-holding, be it through the narration of a film or just with like one-on-one talking with someone and acknowledging that these are terribly difficult images. But that's exactly why things need to change with such urgency. So it depends on the age group and the geography, and whether it's a film or all sorts of things. All of these things, I think, from all activists should be carefully considered when we are speaking with one person or 500 people.
Do you often talk to people in the industry? What is your relationship, if anything, to places that you go to document, say, animals on display or in a factory farm? I guess it depends on the context, but But what kinds of interactions do you have with the people who are running those places?
Well, running is a good choice of words there, because that's different from the people who work at these places.
Yeah, exactly.
It's no surprise that people who run these places don't want me around. If I'm invited in, usually it's just to see a few cages or a few animals and things are really cleaned up. This is why I go in unsolicited at night in a very secure way. I go in, I document, I touch nothing, and I leave. And I've done that in like dozens and dozens and dozens of countries. And I can say that whether I'm in Australia or Sweden or somewhere in Asia or Africa, conditions are the same in factory farms. And there are dead bodies, and there is filth, and there is fear and sadness, and animals live in conditions that no one should live in. And that's why I trespass. That's why I go uninvited, because I need to show things as they are on the day-to-day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as to interacting with the workers, I get to do more of that. And so I get to hear their story about why they're there. I get to hear about how little money they make. I get to hear about how they are unpapered so often and can't get other kinds of work. I've been asking them if I can help them get other work. I have talked to people who have to kill calves. One gentleman said to me that he'd rather kill 100 humans than one more calf. That's how awful it is for him.
Yeah.
And
yeah, very difficult. And quite often, when you go to places that display dolphins and whales, like you said, there really is a difference. And the people who have a day-to-day relationship with the animals, the trainers, the caretakers, very often care very much for these animals and are very concerned about their well-being. And it's a whole system that they're sort of trapped in. That is a difficult one. Wondering if you can also briefly comment on non-captive animals who are bribed by food to come and interact with humans, like dolphins and animals out in the wild who are then, for want of a better term, bribed to come closer to interact or just be there.
Well, that has been common in wildlife photography, and seeing as that is my expertise, I can speak to that specifically. There are places that put out food, i.e., other animals, to attract animals so that we can take beautiful pictures. I think that's quite unethical also, because you're killing animals to feed animals who are perfectly fine in the wild and find their own food. So it's an unethical practice. And also the photo community has really got behind that. And so if you have submitted an image that has involved baiting animals, those images are immediately disqualified from a competition. Good. That's good. Yeah.
Let's see, there's so many others, but unfortunately, we're running out of time. I'd like to leave the last word to you to say whatever it is that you'd like to say about what you do, about anyone who wants to support or promote what you do, and your clients who are really the animals who you're exposing.
They are my clients. They are, and they need all the help that they can get from all of us. And so what I want to say to people is just join us, whether it's in APJ, whether it's with Lori's incredible efforts, or whatever you're most passionate about, just join, whether it's as a donor, whether it's as a contributor with your skills. Like, things are just so dire right now. And we're in an eco catastrophe unfolding every day. And so we all can take part, and it just feels really good to take part, whether it's in a small way or a big way.
Yeah.
And so begin it now if you haven't already. There's much to do, and a lot of other animals who are counting on us to help them out.
I really want to thank you, Jo-Anne, for sharing your gifts with us, and your brilliant insights and your work. And I want to thank everyone in the audience for joining us, and your great questions. And if we haven't gotten to your question, I'll take a look at them, and then I will try to answer them post-webinar. Check out We Animals Media, check out the Whale Sanctuary Project, check out the Camilla Center for Scholarship-Based Animal Advocacy. We're all trying to do the same thing, make the world better for other animals. So thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you for everyone who attended. I'll see you on our website and use our work, and you can take a look at our books as well. We're putting out a lot into the world. So I look forward to you sharing it and interacting with it. And just thanks everyone very, very much. Thank you, Lori. What a pleasure to speak with you.
What a pleasure. Thank you. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye-bye.